And you know, we have all this work, and we have some people on the panel who know about the work that's been done in other countries, so we can build on that. But we have to look at what's unique about Canada. What are the opportunities and characteristics and challenges of Canada that we need to pay particular attention to be successful at developing a digital media strategy? This is just one of those crazy charts that I love, and Alan put it in probably just because I wanted him to, but this is how New Zealand kind of encapsulated on one page what it's all about. But they use this idea of the 4 C's. You need to be connected. You need to have confidence in the system and the security of the system. You have to have the capability. That's the education and skills part, and content has to be a part of it. Up to this point, most of the discussion in Canada around a digital strategy has been absent much serious discussion about content, and the content community has not been a big part of that discussion. Now that's changing, and the CFTPA, for instance, has been invited into the discussions that are going on with the Stratford Institute, Digital 3.0. We've had discussions with people in industry and heritage about how we can participate in the building of a digital strategy, and there's a growing recognition, I think, that our content community has to be a key part of it. It started out more being about wires and tubes and cables and transistors and all that stuff, which is understandable because a lot of this call for a digital strategy came out of the technology community, but now there's a recognition that content has to be a big part of it. And if we really want to be successful in the global market, we have to do more than just provide technology and software and applications. We have to be good at making content. So I just like this. It really encapsulates what they're trying to do. So meaningful dialogue. Now, it's not about government. It's okay, government, go do a digital media strategy, talk to us, and you know, it's over to you. This is really a much bigger idea. This is a nation-building idea. This is about private sector, public sector, government, educational institutions, all kinds of people who have an interest in our digital future, our best minds, really, coming together, including young people, and helping to build a vision of what our particular role or roles could be in a global digital economy. There must be niches for us where we can excel and generate revenue. You know, one of the things that strikes me is that in this country we've been having a rather challenging and fractious debate over the last couple of years about, and it's all about how the pie seems to be getting smaller, and there's a Darwinian struggle over who's going to get what piece of the pie, and there's a bit of, I think, defeatism that's crept into some of our public discussions, and I think this is a path away from that where we can start to think about a bigger pie and the growth of our content creation distribution industry and other parts of our digital sector. That's it. I hope that's helpful. It's over to Alan. I'm out of it, and I'm going to try to talk very little on this panel because I think we have other people who have more to say.
People were looking at our time slot following the 3D panel and asking, you know, isn't that going to be a really tough act to follow? And I just want to emphasize, we are live, we are in 3D, and there are no glasses required. That's how we're trumping them. I want to thank ComScore for the use of the data that was in that presentation. They were very helpful in making that available. One thing to note about those numbers that we looked at was when we look at the Canadian broadcasters, some of them, and for example, CTV is now making you know, more significant penetration in the online space. We've got to remember that that doesn't necessarily mean that it's Canadian content that's being watched, just that the Canadian broadcaster as the middleman is playing a more significant role. Now some of that content of course is Canadian, but we can't conclude that all of it is by any means. Our panelists today, on my far left, a man who needs no introduction, Norm Bolen. Beside Norm is Ian Wilson, a strategic advisor from the Stratford Institute. I'm going to have each of the panelists tell you a little more about themselves as we go along. On my immediate left is Kevin Tuer, the managing director of the Canadian Digital Media Network. On my right is Ian Kelso, president of the Canadian Interactive Alliance and also the president and CEO of Interactive Ontario. Beside Ian is Sarah Diamond, the president of OCAD, the Ontario College of Art and Design. And on my far right is Adam Singer, chairman of the British Screen Advisory Council. So Adam's going to bring a bit of an international and digital Britain perspective to things for us. So I want to start by asking Kevin to tell us a little bit about the Canada 3.0 initiative that many of you may have heard a bit about. There was an initial session last June while a lot of the people in this room were out in Banff. And Kevin has promised they won't do that to us again. But But Kevin, maybe you can tell us a bit about Canada 3.0.
Certainly, it'd be my pleasure. And yes, I was going to start off with the apology over last year. There was no ill intent. It was just purely an oversight from our perspective. This year, I think we're doing much better. This year's conference is May 10th and 11th. It's butting up right against Mother's Day, so that's our challenge there. But let me tell you about, maybe it'd actually be helpful if I could have a quick show of hands. Who's heard of Canada 3.0? Okay, so there's been a few. That's great. So Canada 3.0 is an event instrument for the Canadian Digital Media Network. And for those of you that are not familiar with the Canadian Digital Media Network, it's a newly minted Centers of Excellence in Commercialization and Research that's focused on connecting up clusters of digital media activity across the country for the purposes of creating more collaboration, creating relationships, starting conversations, for the purpose of out of that, really positioning Canada as a leader in digital media to the world. So the first event that we ran was Canada 3.0 last year. Literally weeks before the event started, I think we were at a registration of about 200. Is it about, Ian? Right. I'm happy to say we ended off at about 1,500 when it was all said and done. And there was many facets to it. And the idea, the main premise of Canada 3.0 is to bring together academic, government, and industry for the purpose of starting conversations around digital media. And in essence, I guess you could say it's about trying to do our part to add to this conversation about establishing a digital strategy for the nation. So it was an interesting event. It was held in Stratford, Ontario, in a hockey rink, a very Canadiana, if you will. It's going to be in Stratford again this year, and to show that we are progressing, we're actually going to take over 2 hockey rinks and not just 1. So, you know, go Canada 3.0. But we had various aspects to it. We had keynote speakers, we had interactive discussions, we had panel discussions, and we had a boot camp. And the boot camp part of it is we had companies, organizations basically set up exhibits within the hall and give people the opportunity to walk around and experience a little bit of Canadian digital media. And I think it was an eye-opener from both sides. And we brought in not only the delegates, but we also brought in high school students to experience, to explain, and for us to tell, you know, for them to tell us really what their impressions of digital media is and understand where they're at. So we're doing it all over again this year. Where the theme is basically the same. We've actually established it around a moonshot. The moonshot is that anyone can do anything online by 2017. And we're in the process of filling out the program and basically recruiting those who can help us fill that out and basically start new conversations. And basically theme our way to that moonshot, establishing that initiative or that objective. I think it aligns very well with what we're trying to do from a national digital or a digital media strategy for Canada. So May 10th and 11th, everybody mark your calendar. Hope to see you there and join in the discussion.